The movie begins with a man known as Mike dressing up. The scene switches to his wife knocking from inside her room complaining she can't get the door to open. When the husband blames her, she insisted that her husband break the door. Her husband seems not to, complaining that the door closed $1,500, saying it's impossible to break the door. Then he proceeded to breaking it while laughing. They both kiss with him smacking her butt. At the office, Mark received a call from a man demanding he wanted to talk to him. The man informed him about the death of Mark's father. The next scene, Mark informed his wife and kids about his father, telling them he wasn't good of a man. Just then they planned going for his funeral to pay their final respect. They also talk about a kid has been bullying Ty. They all flew for the funeral in rural Appalachia. However, on their way, Mark stopped at the gas station to fuel the plane. They asked their father about how he knew a place like that existed, and he laughed, telling his daughter he's a very old pilot. He went into the store just for him to find a lot of things and stuff in some jar. A young man who came by speaks to T, to which Ty showed him his phone. The young man was eager to see it. He went on asking about the plane and how much it must have cost them, saying they look rich. T pointed to the direction they planned going. Then, the young man became scared and left, telling him he should have gotten a 5G phone rather than 4G cause he would be needing it. As they all left the gas station, the police came in for questioning. Mark explained it was legal for him to park his plane right where it was. They made a fun joke about the cop and they all left. On their way, they all argued as the thunderstorm became more tense and serious. Suddenly, their plane crashed, with thunder lightning hitting it plane clean. Immediately, the scene then switches to Mark waking up, and it seems he was found and was taken care of. We see a very deep cut in his leg. He tried walking, but then he mistaken stepped on the injured leg, making him scream. He tried checking through the window to see his environment. All of a sudden, a woman comes him and insisted for him to go back to bed, but Mark kept asking for his family. She screamed for help and a man comes in. He seems to be the husband. He kept on asking, but a very big man came in, carrying him with force. He then had a flashback. Mark kept pleading to see his family. The woman then blew a powder at him, knocking him out to sleep. Outside, we see the old lady humming and singing. She spread her clothes, then again, we see her mixing blood while still singing. She sews her cloth. At the compound of the house, a man is digging in what seems to be a grave. Meanwhile, Mark wakes up, and the old lady dresses his wounds. Mark demanded for an ambulance, telling the woman he could pay her any amount just for that. But she tells him money doesn't move her, as she's an old lady, saying even a telephone she doesn't have. She shows him an idol, saying it in form of Mark, that anything which happens to the idol or muddled statue will immediately affect him. And she demonstrated. Mark is shocked. She placed salt at the window, and she laughs evilly. Mark tries stepping out of the bed, but seems to be in serious pains. He walks toward the stairs and tried unlocking the window. Through the windows, he sees the statue looking straight at him. In shock, Mark follows the roof of the building. Down the building, we see the big guy, keeping watch. Mark walked on the rooftop. While crossing it, he ran toward a shining light. He looked down from the top, only to see some old individuals praising and dancing. The old lady then insisted that they kill a little goat, ripping the eyes, and they performed some miracle, as they made a dumb woman to talk, and even a blind old man to see. They removed the eyes of the goat, giving it to a man called Julius, and immediately Julius sees Mark at the top of the roof. Immediately, both the old lady and man run to check up on Mark in his room. Mark noticed this and tries running back to his room before they both get there. The lady comes in and finds Mark on his bed. She asked why the window was opened, and Mark told her that he needed air, stating that was why he opened it. She asked if he was in the rain. He said no. She told him about them having their meeting, wondering if he saw all they did. He denied seeing anything. The old lady then proceeded to chaining the window. The next day, Mark wakes up to eat, and he rushes the food. He apologizes to the old woman, saying he didn't mean all he told her last night. Mark talked about his father, and she seems to know who his father was. They talked, and she left while leaving the door open as she went on to bring Mark more food. Mark rushes to get a spare key, and she's happy Mark is eating a load of her food. Mark asked about him hearing a noise coming from a phone, and she said that was nothing. They both talk, but the talk seems to be awkward. She told him that he's from this land and that what gave him those blood in his vein. Mark is shocked. He asked her about she locking the door, and she replied it was for his own good. Mark opens what she gave him. Old for him to arrange those and found out it was all bones at that moment, but found out that it was his son he just finished eating. And he started vomiting. The old lady rushes in to clean up, and Mark pretended nothing happened. Immediately, Mark goes to the door while opening it with his spear key. While coming down the stairs, the big guy passed him. Mark eyed. He kept on walking. He entered a room and found the old lady. Mark found a bird, and the bird repeated what Mark told it to the old lady, and she is angry with the words that came out from the bird mouth. She went to Mark's room, and she found nothing. Mark run. While running he fell. Flashback of his wife began playing through this mind. He stood up and kept on walking fast. He then found where their plane landed, only for him to see blood all over the plane, proving his family is all dead. Just then, he was hit clean on his head. The scene switches, and he found himself inside the room again. He started removing the bandages on his leg. He opened the cotton just for him to find a nail inside his foot. Mark tried to pull it out with him bleeding seriously in pains. Mark screams and removed it. He pulled out a very long nail. He walked toward the window, and then he saw 3 graves, indicating his wife and 2 kids. Mark rushed over to dig it out, but he found just 3 animals on the ground. He went into the basement, where he found series of dead bodies with nails on them. Mark is shocked and afraid. He saw some book and pictures which he then read and had a flashback. The book seems to be an instruction for doing evil. He took some materials needed for doing such charm and began his by following the steps. In the basement he found his son phone and took it. Just then, the old lady and an old man comes back from where they went. Mark runs back to his room and put back his bandages and parings the nail back onto his leg. The old lady comes in with the big guy holding an axe. She checks the wounded leg and told him the leg needed some dressing so it could heal faster, and she left the room. Mark tried calling 911 with his son's phone, but a young man picked the call. Seems to be the cop from earlier. The cop told him that they have been looking for him, his wife and daughter. Mark asked about his son, and they told him that they haven't heard nothing about him. Mark then proceeded to telling the cop his location. Just as Mark tried to remove the nail on his leg, the old lady comes in and used that statue she told him about to torture Mark. She then left. Mark looked through the window and saw the cop, but as the cop calls through the phone, Mark's voice could not be heard. Seems the old lady already removed his voice. Mark ran and saw the cop. The cop asked about what happened, and he removed the stuff on the status and he could now talk. He explained to the cop about how they did to him, but the cop seems not to be interested. As they both drive, the cop took him back to the old lady and Mark is shocked by this. They took him back to the house, but this time where they make their offerings and sacrifices. Just then Mark sees his wife, his son and his daughter. Mark is weak as the old lady made him so. They'd all planned killing and sacrificing him. As they tried killing him, Mark stabbed the man who tried to stab him. In a flashback, we see Mark who had already practiced how to make his own charm. We see him hunting his family. Just then he noticed his son's hands has been amputated. Outside, we see a cop, and it seems to have hit an old man. He began shooting just as he shoots his bullet finishes, and Mark comes out from where he hid and killed the cop. The old woman instructed the villagers to kill Mark, showing no mercy. Mark faces the big guys and they fight. Just as he tried strangling Mark, he vomited onto Mark's face. The old woman comes in, holding a knife. As she was about to approach and stab Mark, Mark then blows a powder to her face, freezing her. He went on hitting her with a hammer. A fire breaks out, and he placed a salt on the door, making her scream and not able to walk past it. Mark walked toward his wife and family in victory. They looked toward the fire burning, indicating this would truly be a memory that would be difficult to forget. They drive away from the town. Just then we hear the old voice, and then she laughs. The movie then ends. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more.